Page 900. Vayodaber Moshe el Roshei Amatos livnei Yisrael lemor. Moshe spoke to the heads of the tribes. Zeh hadover asher tziva Hashem. This is what Hashem has commanded. Now, what's he going to do here? Moshe is going to go into the entire laws of the neder. You know what a neder is? A neder is what we call, there's a vow and there's an oath. An oath is usually translated as a shavua. A neder is a vow. And a person could make a neder in various ways. For example, a neder usually means putting something in a forbidden category. So a person says, for example, he makes a neder that he's not going to eat red meat for a month. He makes a neder. He wants to control himself. Red meat's not good. His cholesterol's high. Whatever it is, he makes a neder. He puts something into a forbidden category, as opposed to a shvua, an oath. I swear by Hashem's name that such and such happened, which you do in court. In court, you make a shvua. In the United States legal system, by the way, if you're ever in court, you are allowed to affirm. You can, be on religious grounds, you can affirm. I do not want to swear. We don't swear. Jews don't swear. If we could avoid it. And therefore, I affirm that I tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. But I will not swear. A neder is where anybody can make a vow. Not only you can make a vow verbally, a neder can be a result of your actions. So for example, if you get up, let's say 3 days in a row, you get up early to daven nates. So your actions can actually, if you fall into a pattern, which is 3 times in a row, you may need a release from the neder. And there's a way to release a person from a neder. One of the ways you release a person from the neder is you go to a wise man, and he finds a way of showing that the neder was made under mistaken circumstances. The most basic way, it's called a pesach, a release from the neder. The most basic way is, for example, a guy vows he's not eating red meat for 30 days. Okay, and then he goes, he's got this wedding invitation sitting in his house, and he goes to the wedding 2 weeks into his neder. And he's sitting at the wedding, and they're serving, you have a choice. You could either have ribeye steak or the vegetarian dish. The guy's sitting there, like, oh, you know, and I like to get at that ribeye steak over there, kosher ribeye steak, you know, and he's like, but you know, but I didn't, you know, but I made a neder. And whoa. So he finds you go to a wise man says to you, at the time you made the neder, had you known that you would be confronted by a ribeye 2 weeks into your neder, would you have made the neder? And if the guy says, no, I would not have, had I known, I would not have made that neder, then it's a release. Retroactively, you were never made a neder. Retroactively, it's as if the neder was never made because it was considered a neder under, it's not a game, and you can't get a release so quickly, but if there is something that came up, and a guy says, I'm making a neder that I will not be involved in finding a marriage partner for the next month. Because he's been going out, you know, nice frum girls and this and that, and all, you know, and all of a sudden he gets a phone call 2 weeks later. They got a young lady who's stunning, and her father has a stunning bank account, right? And they're looking for a guy who studies at Or Samech, and he originates from Pittsburgh, which all fits your description, right? And he's like, yeah, but I made a neder, you know. Well, there are other guys she's looking at. Well, 1 second. Then you go to the wife and say, well, when you made the neder, did you think that you were going to be offered a double stunning? And the guy says, no, I didn't. Would you have made the neder if you knew this would be offered? No, I wouldn't have. Then you have a release. It's a valid release. They're not playing a game over it. That's a legitimate halachic release. Now, there's another way that a neder can be, that's what we call a release. That means you made the neder kicked in, and then you found a release from the neder. Yisrael, make it a little colder, okay? You found a release from the neder. Then there's another type of neder. Now pay attention carefully because we're going to get into this in a second. And that is, a man has veto power over his wife's neder. So for example, a woman says, I am making a neder, no more red meat for a month, no more red meat. The husband isn't happy to hear that because he knows if his wife doesn't eat red meat, chances are he ain't eating red meat. You know, it's like Islam says, if I can't sleep, nobody sleeps, right? And the husband is not happy about that, and he doesn't want her making that neder for whatever reason. So the husband has a right to say veto. Veto. He can veto his wife's neder. That means it never started. Not that he needs a release down the line. The woman says, I make a neder that I'm not going to eat red meat for a month. The husband's in the next room, and he just has to say veto, whether she hears it or not. And I'm emphasizing that because we're going to get to that in a few moments. He's got veto privileges. So the Torah starts here. Take a look at Pasuk Gimel. Second line from the top. Thanks, Yisrael. Ish ki yidor neder la Hashem. A man makes a neder. Oh, he shava shvua, or he makes an oath. Les or Yisrael nafsho. Lo yachel devoro. he must not desecrate his word. Whatever he says, he must fulfill. And then the Torah goes into the various laws of neders. A father could veto his daughter's neder, husband goes into the technical laws. Now, one of the questions the commentaries ask over here goes back to the first verse. The first verse says that Moshe said this to the heads of the tribes. Rashi points out that he didn't say it to the heads of the tribes. He only taught them first. Then Moshe Rabbeinu taught it to the people, but it's described as being a law. You don't find this anywhere else in the Torah. Moshe said to the heads of the tribes, don't wear shatnez. Moshe said to the heads of the tribes, don't eat pork. You never find that. All of a sudden, when it comes to the laws of vows and pledges and swearing, Moshe Rabbeinu says to the heads of the tribes, he calls them and says, okay, these are the laws of neders. So the commentators ask, why? Why does the Torah introduce it with the heads of the tribes? Why is this specific law go through or involve the heads of the tribes? The Torah mentioning it obviously is emphasizing that there's something to learn from the heads of the tribes. So what is it? Anybody have an idea? Why would we get the heads of the tribes involved here? Okay, so the commentaries point out, first of all, practical reasons. For very practical reasons. What's that?
Leaders have influence over other people.
And therefore what?
People listen more. I don't know.
Oh, you're close, Aaron, you're very close. Yeah, Jason, go ahead.
The heads of the tribes have the ability to undo the nether.
Okay, that's true. Could be that they're the ones who have to know all the halachas fluently to know when you do undo it. And by the way, the people will tell you, no, I'm not undoing that netter. That's not a valid reason. It's not, I told you, it's not a game.
You go to the head of the tribe.
You have to go to the head tribe. Good, that could be. It could be. Could be. What else? Practical. Think practical terms in our world. So why not? It's good if you lead by example and everybody do what you do. So why not do it by shatnez and by chazer, also by all the prohibitions? Or why are we limiting it over here? Why are we limiting it over here? So the answer is, well, just look at the Democratic candidate. Look at the field, the Republican field for all the candidates who are going to be president of the United States. Yeah, they're about 12 guys now. So the field is filling up. I think they're up over 12, something like that. The field is filling up. And what does each one of them do? You get up there and you tell everybody what you promise and what you're going to do. Right? So the Torah says, by the way, who is most susceptible over here? Who needs a reminder to keep your word? Who needs a reminder to talk straight and be honest? People who are leaders, because hey, this needs a favor and this one wants to. Everybody's got a what do you call it? Everybody's got an angle. So I heard an interview in Israel. They had a guy on the radio. As I heard live, they had a guy who was the liaison between the politicians and some sort of lawyers group. This guy's the liaison. He's the go-between. So he's talking about what he does, the type of people. So the interviewer says to him, "Can I ask you something? Have you ever had to lie?" So the guy says, in Hebrew, he says, let's put it this way. There were some days where I told the truth. That's what the guy says. You got, you're up there with the what do you call it? They tell a story about the guy, the American guy, the congressman who goes to visit an Indian reservation. And he's standing on the Indian reservation and says, "We're going to build you schools." And everybody yells, "Ungawa, Ungawa." "We're going to build you parks." And "Ungawa, Ungawa." And he says, "We're going to take care of your health." Ungawa, Ungawa. And everybody, okay, terrific. So they start walking away. He's walking away with the chief. And as they're walking away, chief looks at him and says, "Hey, be careful, don't step in the Ungawa." Right? The politicians get up there and promise. Everybody's promising. I thought that was funny when I heard it the first time. I guess you had to be there. And everybody's what do you call it? Everybody's just happy, going to be happy as lark. Just vote for me, and I'm going to give you everything you want. Yeah, but you're contradicting yourself. Don't worry, I'll work it out. The Rosh Mattot first before anything. Number one. Number two. There's even a more penetrating lesson here. How did they become the heads of the tribes? There were no elections on the Jewish people. How did you become the head of a tribe? There were no elections. There was no popularity. There was no campaigning. How did you become the head of a tribe? You know how? One day you got a tap on the shoulder, and Moshe Rabbeinu said, "You're the head of the tribe. You're the head of a tribe, and you're the head of a tribe." So how did you become head of the tribe? Because of the power of the word. The word is so powerful that the word changed you from being an ordinary citizen. You've now become a government official. The Torah wants to say, these are the people. Look at them. They're the example of what power of a word. And therefore, we're going to talk about the power of a word of a neder. We're going to talk about the power of what comes out of your mouth. Lo yachal devaro. Okay? Now, I want to show you something remarkable. Okay, you ready for this? Fasten your seatbelts. Take a look. The Torah goes on, and on the next page, the Torah says, look at verse 9. Torah talks about the following scenario. Verse 9 says like this, V'im biyom shemoa isha yani osa, 3 lines from the top of page 902. Torah says, if on the day that her husband hears it, the heifer is nidra asher aleh, the husband vetoes it. Ves mivta sosea asher asra, anything that she has prohibited on herself, and her husband vetoed it. Al nafsha, v'Hashem yisracha, God should forgive her. So the Talmud says, what are you talking about here? What does God need to forgive her? A woman says, okay, no red meat for me for 30 days. Her husband says veto, and God should forgive her. Well, what do you got to forgive her for? She said she made a pledge. Well, nothing happened. Nothing happened. So the Talmud asks that question about this verse, and the Talmud says, you know what we're talking about over here? Talk about a woman who made a vow, but she never heard her husband veto it. So the woman, veto over here veto is not a proper Italian name over here. Veto meaning to annul the vow. So the woman, the woman decided that she is going to put red meat off limits. And her husband's in the next room, he says veto, and she didn't hear him. And then 2 days later, she decides, you know what? Neder schmetter, I'm hungry, and I want to have a steak. And she goes and makes a steak for herself. And she eats the steak. Has she sinned?
No.
What?
Well, according
Has she sinned?
to her knowledge, yes.
Has she sinned? Yes or no?
No.
No, she hasn't. There was no neder over here. Was she intending to sin? Yeah, she didn't really care. So what does the Torah say? You need an atonement. So now listen to this. Just listen. Stay with this. It's mind-boggling. The Talmud says that when Rabbi Akiva would study the Torah, when he got to this verse, Rabbi Akiva would cry. Why would Rabbi Akiva cry? Rabbi Akiva said to himself, well, if the Torah says you need an atonement, when you wanted to do an Aveira, and you didn't even do the Aveira you didn't even do an Aveira. And the Torah says, Hashem Yitzchak, you need an atonement. This is where the thumb goes up, gentlemen. So Kal v'chomer, all the more so, if a person intended to do an Aveira and did an Aveira, all the more so you need an atonement. So Rabbi Akiva would cry. The magnitude of responsibility that we carry for doing an Aveira, you need an atonement when you didn't even successfully do an Aveira, so certainly you need an atonement when you do successfully do an Aveira. That's what Rabbi Akiva cried. You know what the commentaries ask about that? Why Rabbi Akiva? Why did Rabbi Akiva cry? I mean, a lot of people came before Rabbi Akiva read that verse. All the other sages read the verse, and all the subsequent sages read the verse. Why did Rabbi Akiva cry? Of all verses, why did Rabbi Akiva cry? Good question, valid question. The Talmud says Rabbi Akiva cried. So one of the commentaries says like this. Let's go back in time a little bit. Let's go back to the story of Yosef and his brothers. Do you know, you were asking Justin about the dirges that we say. On Yom Kippur and on Tisha B'Av, there's a dirge where we mentioned the 10 martyrs who were killed, among whom was Rabbi Akiva, who was raked apart by the Romans. So we mentioned what's called the Asara Haruge Malchus. We say it in Yom Kippur. It's a very touching, moving dirge. And we say it on Tisha B'Av. Okay? The Asara Haruge Malchus. Now, if you look at the background of the dirge, I don't remember if it appears in Tisha B'Av, but in Yom Kippur, the background, the dirge begins with a background. There's a Roman emperor who calls these 10 sages in, and he says, listen, in your Torah it says that if somebody kidnaps, he's liable for the death penalty. We never find that Yosef's brothers were punished for kidnapping and selling. He became frum all of a sudden, Roman. He says, we never find that Yosef's brothers they kidnapped him and sold him. We never find the punishment that your own Torah says. Never have there been 10 sages of your stature in one place at one time, and therefore you're going to be an atonement for their brothers. Each one of them is brutally tortured. Now, historical fact, they did not live in the same generation. The conversation never took place, because you never had all 10 of them at one time. However, poetic license was taken when compiling that dirge by the Rishon who put together the dirge in order to speak to us and try to arouse a certain amount of emotion. Okay, that's the background of the dirge. Okay, now, do you know that Kabbalistically, the Arizal says that those 10 brothers who sold Yosef, they were reincarnated as these 10 sages who were tortured by the Romans. They were tortured, they were reincarnated, tortured by the Romans. And each one of them became one of those. Now, who was the ringleader of the brothers? Who was the ringleader of the brothers at the time of the sale? The ringleader was Shimon, tribe of Shimon. Rabbi Akiva was a reincarnation of Shimon. And there are certain similarities. Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 disciples who died. Remember, Rabbi Akiva had 24,000? And from the tribe of Shimon, 24,000 died last week's Parsha when they got involved. So there are similarities. Rabbi Akiva is the soul of Shimon. He carries the soul of Shimon in him. Whatever it is, it's 24,000 from the tribe of Shimon. Now, Rabbi Akiva, according to the what do you go? The commentators, it's the 24,000 triggered off by Shimon. If they're not from the tribe, they're triggered off by Shimon because if he was from Shimon, it triggered off. Whatever it was, that's Rabbi Akiva is the reincarnation of Shimon. Okay. Now, the brothers of Yosef. Do you remember the conversation? Do you remember how the conversation goes with Yosef? The brothers say to Yosef, "Oh no." Let's go back for a second. I want you to see the side. It's a mind-boggling concept. Take a look at Parshas Vayigash, and it's right at the very beginning, page 252. We're out of time, so I want to go through this very quickly. Verse Hey, page 252. Yosef says to the brothers, it's about 7 lines from the bottom of the page. He reveals himself, and the brothers can't talk. The brothers they're speechless. What do you say to a guy you just sold 22 years ago? Hi, how are things? Right? Hi, fellows, it's me. He reveals himself. Look what Yosef then says. Ve'ata, and now, alte otsu, do not be upset, do not be aggravated. If you find it, please show the person next to you. Pasuk Hey, 7 lines from the bottom. Ve'ata, alte otsu, don't be upset. Ve'al yichar beinechem ki mechartim osiena. Don't be upset that you sold me here. Ki lemichya shlachani elokim lifnechem. God has sent me ahead of you that I should provide for you. So how does Yosef calm the brothers? He says, don't be upset. You thought it was a bad idea. You had bad intentions, but it all worked out well. You hear the similarity? Yeah, you had bad intentions though. And what does the Torah say over here? The Torah says over here that if you have bad intentions, even if you didn't really do anything wrong, you still need an atonement. Why is Rabbi Akiva crying? Because he's a reincarnation of a ringleader of this gang who's never had accountability, never had payback. So Rabbi Akiva realizes at some level of the soul, whether consciously or subconsciously, the tears are evinced in Rabbi Akiva because he realizes whether consciously or unconsciously there's going to be retribution for this. Because although their intent was never carried out, but they intended for something negative, there has to be some sort of Hashem Yisrael, there's going to be an atonement. And Rabbi Akiva realizes at that point that there's going to be a torturous death and his is going to be the worst of everybody else's. Therefore Rabbi Akiva cries more than anybody else who reads that verse. And by the way, that's why when Yosef says to the brothers, Ve'ata alte otzvu, and now don't be aggravated, don't be upset. The commentaries say what he was saying to them was, Ve'ata, and now don't be aggravated, don't be upset, because it all worked out well. But at some point in history, there will be retribution for this. At some point in history, there's going to be a punishment for this. Ve'ata, now, no. But some point later on, there's going to be. And that's why Rabbi Akiva cries.